Aaron had a chance to speak to Barry Boschelli, who is the childhood friend of John Wayne Gacy. He also has a book out about his relationship with Gacy called Johnny and Me, which apparently he mentions many times in the interview.
That's good. No, I believe you should plug it. If you flaunt it, got it. You know what Zero Mostel says in the producers, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, you're right. And that's you're right. And here he is. I was trying to think of a joke, but it didn't come quick enough. And here he is speaking about his relationship with Mr. Gacy. Here is Barry Boschelli.
When did you first hear about John Wayne Gacy, and how immediate did you know that, wait, I knew him?
Well, now that is a question that goes right back to the beginning, because Johnny and I grew up as childhood friends when he was 8 and I was 9. 18 and he was 17, my folks moved out to Des Plaines, Illinois, and I have a little card. It says, Johnny and I went down the path together. He went one way, I went the other. And then I came out to Cheyenne, Wyoming in the early 70s after Mom had passed away to work with my family, my brother and sister-in-law. Then I had stayed here until about 75, returned back to Illinois, encountered Johnny the first time, and since that time, of course, he'd really changed. Wasn't the same that I remembered when he was younger. And I had started a project with another roommate of mine to keep my sanity, the fact that I had lost my mom. So I started this project called The White House, and I turned an apartment. Anyways, into it, and one evening, while we were up doing our thing, I was figuring out, because people used to come and visit it, there came a knock at the door. Now, this is about approximately 75, and I said to my partner, what do people come in this late? 9 o'clock in the evening. We don't have this late of people. So he went to open the door, and as he did, I happened to be standing there, and Johnny says to me, this is from your father, this is from me, and hit me in the side of my left side of the face, and I landed on the floor. Well, I had no idea why I was getting hit. It all happened so quickly. And when my roommate was going to throw him over the banister, and I said, no, don't do that. I said, I know he's under probation. So Johnny went a-running, and the next day I called up, it's all in my book called Johnny and Me, the book I pulled out in September 5th of 2008 through Alter House that put it together. And in the book I tell you that the next day I called up his mother, Marion, who is very close to me, because I used to eat many dinners in her house. She's only 4 doors from my house on the northwest side of Chicago, on Monitor and Memorial. Monitor is the street I lived on. Memorial was the next street he lived on. Anyways, I called her up and I said, Marion. She said, oh, I haven't heard from you in some time. I said, this is not a social call. I said, your son hit me last night in the side of my face, and it's all swelled up. And she said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I says, what is all this about? And still I didn't get all the thing. The only thing I could figure out, my sister, who's long passed, learned through my family that my father was going to give Johnny and Marion, my mother's, all her jewelry. Now we're talking nice stuff, because Dad's in the cocktail lounge. So my sister saw him running down down the front steps when they were all at the house. I wasn't allowed to be there. And so she grabbed him and got it back. Well, when my sister called me up and told me this, I went into a rage. I said, is this how my mom gets paid back for her kindness? And so word got to my dad and to Johnny, and Daddy used Johnny to come to my house. And so I told her. Well, that was in 75, and then, of course, I moved on with my life, and he moved on with what he was doing, and it wasn't great. Believe me, it wasn't, because I didn't know that his mind had turned. I knew that things had happened when we were little kids, and I know that he was hit by a swing from a park that we had gone to, all 15 of us. We used to all hang together back in the 50s, long past. You'll never see those lights again. And he went to grab a swing, and it clobbered in front of his forehead, which knocked him out on the ground. And, of course, that ended that little thing, and we took him put him in a wagon, and carried him home. And I didn't see Johnny for about a week. But knowing Johnny, as I met him in 1950, playing Steal the Bacon on the northwest side of Chicago, and putting my hand into his, I remember, and I still this very day, I was right. I said to my friends, let's go meet our new friends, because I saw him walking up the street, and of course my folks was the house where everybody came and sat and drank. And so it was in a hot August evening, and school was out, and so I said, let's go meet him. So as I walked up toward him, I had this funny feeling come across me. He wasn't just a person. There was something about him. He was different. That's all I could tell you. And as I went to put my hand out, I said, hello, and he said, my name is John Wayne Gacy, just like that. And I said, my name is Barry Boschelli. And we grabbed hands, and as I shook, I knew there was something about him. But of course, who's going to listen to me? And this is all in my mind. So anyways, I wasn't wrong. And we grew up, and we did many things together, as is in my book. You'll read about the junk picking. Of course, we don't call it junk picking. We call it uppreneurs. And we were the fancy junk pickers, because we were choosy what we took from other people's garbage cans. And I think about what I did then. I'm surprised I didn't come down with the disease. But anyways, we did that, and then you'll read about the Christmas caroling that he formed, Johnny, myself, Karen, his sister, and Connie, who's gone now. And we used to go to neighbors, and he had a beautiful voice. He could sing Oh Holy Night and make you cry, and every word of it, believe me. And I've always regretted that with my father's background and politicians and people, Mayor Daley, and all the people he knew, I couldn't go to him for favors. I just couldn't. And that'll be a regret that I'll just have to live with the rest of my life. Because I thought to myself sometimes, if I had done that, would that have stopped him, or would that have altered his life in such a way that he never would have ended up the way that we'll never know. We'll just never know. And then
let me ask you this. There's a lot of questions here. When Mr. Gacy got arrested and all the stuff came out, or even when you first met him, that you knew something was different. And,
yes.
But when all that came out and all the notoriety that came with it.
Well, I was, at the time, there was a banding by my father. I didn't have no brains. We'll just leave it at that. So I went my way and my dad went his. Well, I went to his house in 1978 after a number of attempts to try to make peace with my father. Once when I was married, he wouldn't let me say anything in my defense. When I said, Dad, I said, why do you always put Johnny before me? He said, because he has more brains than you have. And I said, that's not true. I said, look where Johnny is. That's because he was in prison now in 1980. Look where I am. This was 82 when this went down. And he said, I don't want to hear no more about this. See, he has stuck his neck out in many ways, more ways that I found out later on. Well, then, as he was leaving to get away from me, because the interview was over, I yelled out to him, Dad, and that was a hard thing to do, but anyways, I did. And he turned around and said, what do you want now? I said, I have something that Johnny never had. What? Your blood. And so he didn't talk to me for about 5 years, but that's okay. It hurt me, but I had to move on. Then eventually, up in Fontana, I said to myself more than once, my mom wouldn't want this. I've got to do something about making peace, even if he wants to throw the kitchen sink at me. So I drove down from Fontana, Wisconsin. I was taking care of an estate, and I had called him ahead of time. He said, yeah, I could come, because you just never go to his house unless he says so. He was that kind of a man, very, very organized. And so I I knocked on his door, and my stepmother answered me, came inside, and she said, you want to talk to your father? And I said, yes. She said, yes. And I started to talk to him, about trying to get things straightened out. And he would just look at me and say, look, we're not going there no more. I said, I know, but look what's coming down here. Look all the stuff that has happened. Can't we make some kind of a peace? And he said, no. Anyways, go to the counter. There's a note there. So there was a note from Johnny. And I hadn't seen him since the jewelry episode and him hitting me in the face with his fist from my father and him. And that was in 75. Now this is 78. So I'm afraid to even call him because I don't know what he's going to do to me. So I finally made a decision. I called, and I'm shaking like a leaf. And he says, "What are you shaking for?" Because I'm stuttering. And I said, "Well, it's because I went down to see my father. I haven't seen him in some time." And he said, "Would you like to come out to my house?" And I said, "Where do you live?" "In Norwood, Illinois." So I thought nothing of it. And yet, in the back of my mind, I could hear these words, "Don't go there. Don't go there." Well, you know, you don't pay no attention to that. So the next morning I got up and used my dad's car to drive there, and I found him eventually after I got lost. And I found it. It was about 10:30, and he comes outside, and I said, "Johnny, what in the hell is this smell?" "Oh," he said, "I should have told you. My sewage broke." Yeah, well, what do I know? I believed it, like everybody else. So we went in the house, and I said, "The smell in here." Yeah, because down below the living room is Johnny Gacy's cemetery, which no one knew about, not even me. So I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to talk, and I'm gagging, and we must have talked for about an hour or reminisced. I'm sure we did about the Christmas show that's in my book, the restaurant we did together, the Christmas caroling. And then at one point I said, "Well, you know, I got to go soon because I got to get back home." My dad was going to fix spaghetti for me. I love spaghetti and meatballs. I'll never get it the way he did it, but at least that was then. So anyways, we're getting ready to leave. He said, "Oh, wait a minute. I got something I want to do." And I said, and he goes in the bedroom. He comes out with some handcuffs. And he says to me, "Would you try these handcuffs on?" And right at that moment, sir, I tell you, anybody can contradict me all they want, but the good Lord was looking out for me. He said, "Tell him to get you a glass of water." So when he went to get the glass of water, I grabbed my dad's keys. I'm trembling, but I can't put a connection on it yet. I'm scared to death. No connection yet. So I run, and I try to get out, and I run up against a wall, and I fall on the floor. And it's all there documented in my book. And then I get up, and I run outside. He comes after me. He says, "Don't leave my side." Now, that would have been the old Johnny, because that's how he talked to me, you know. I got to the car. I couldn't get the keys in. My water's running off me like a fountain. I'm hysterical. I'm well, whatever. Anyways, I get in the car, and as I gun it to pull away, I look back, and he's got his hands up in the air. He says, "I'm going to murder you." Now, that you would have thought that would have clicked me right then. No. What happened was I thought I had offended him by not doing the handcuffs, because he said he had the keys, see? No. He was mad because he hadn't finished the job that he had thought he was going to do, and that is kill Barry, his friend that he grew up with. Because in my back of my book I write, "Running from the Devil, 360. So I go to my brother who lived in McHenry, Illinois, and I told him the whole story, and I'm hysterical, of course, and he's trying to make sense and tails out of it. I said, "I think he's going to kill me." And he said, "Oh," he said, "try to make sense." And he says, "Calm down." And I tried. I'm saying these words to him, but I really have not grasped the whole thing yet. I moved to Florida to be with my brother because my mom was gone and everything. And while I'm working for a landscaper in 1980, the call comes to my boss hears over the radio that Johnny's arrested, blah, blah. And right after he did this to me, there was about a week or 2 weeks, detectives come back to his house, and you know the rest of the story. And so I'm sitting there, and he says, "You know what? I got bad news for you, but I don't know how you're going to cope with this." And I said, "Oh, my father died?" I said, it's okay. I prepare myself. "No," he said, "it's about John Gacy." I said, "What did he do?" He said, "Turn on the radio." And that's when it all came back to me. And I did not work for about a week, and then I was able to do a little bit as I could. I couldn't get it out of my mind. He really was going to kill me. He really was going to kill me. And then we went into counseling, which I wrote in my book, then hide it. told the American people what it was like living with nightmares one after another. And I left with it, and then when I started the book in 1994, May 10th, when they executed him, that's when my heart really poured it out, because I knew him when he was a little boy like myself. And I tell everybody, whoever wants to hear it, try to understand. I didn't know him as a serial killer. I knew him as my friend, who him and I had done some crazy things together and drove the neighborhood nuts. But when I learned what he had done, then I realized he had so much evil. But when you see his life he lived, he had a wonderful mother. She was very close to me, and I miss her, and as the others. They're all gone now. Just Karen and I are alive. That's Johnny's sister. They're all passed on. And she was unbelievable. But anyways, I used to go over there for dinner. Sometimes I was lucky to grab Johnny away from the kitchen table, my friend. Other times, Mr. Gacy, in his rages and his abuse and drinking, he'd come up those stairs for no reason, run over to the table and hit Johnny in the face with his fist for no reason, just because he couldn't stand him.
So I'm curious of that, having all this information and you having this insight into that when you, on a day-to-day basis, when you see movies or TV shows or even news, even regular broadcast news, when another type of crime or criminal comes out, and the fact that they sensationalize the bad stuff, and I'm wondering if you kind of think, well, yes, they've done bad things, but they didn't just start doing bad things.
You picked up. That's exactly what I've tried to portray since my book came out, since I had my signings, since I did 45 radio shows in 2009. This is what I tried to say. You're asking me, and I'm trying to tell you how I know the Johnny that you all know as a serial killer. I know him in another time. I have a hard time separating when people say things to me and I see someone on the screen, they don't know the whole story. Did the reporter go back? Did they talk to the grandmother, the great-grandmother? Did they talk to the father, the mother? Did they talk to the neighbors? Did they all get their stories straight? Do they all know what made it? What I'm trying to say to you is, people say things, but they don't have the whole story. This is why I wrote the book, Johnny and Me, so that you, as a journalist, as a newscaster, or what your job entails, you would now be able to read my book and realize the real Johnny before he became the loose cannon.
And I'll end with this question. Try to end on not such a despairing note. And that, what is there a good memory of you and Johnny that you try to remember more than anything, more than all the bad stuff? What's
I remember,
the good memory?
I'm trying to hold my emotions back. It is very hard. Sir, when I wrote the book, I cried more tears than anybody will ever know. Only God will know. When I put those words down and knew I was actually reliving the nightmare all over again through my family and our connections and Johnny and his family. What I remember of Johnny was he tried to reach out and he tried to do what he thought was decent and good, but his father would not give him the time of day. Mine, I gave up a long time ago. Johnny and I were two kids, as I put it in my book, if you get the book, Johnny and Me, a steam locomotive going down the track 60 miles an hour, trying to reach out for the biggest star that we can grab to make something of our lives. We knew that we were the footballs. We knew that we were going to get the blame right and left, and we did. I'm not saying that the other members of my family didn't suffer, or Joan and Karen got it, but Johnny got it the most, and so did I. We got the revenge and the hate for their lives. I put in my book, neither father, mine or Johnny's, loved themselves, so how could they love anybody else? And my memory is of Johnny singing "O Holy Night" as we went Christmas caroling 50 years ago in the cold snow on the northwest side of Chicago. And having people cry when they heard his voice will always be in the back of my memory. Yeah, he had a gorgeous voice. And it's I have 3 regrets. One, that because of my father's attitude toward me and all the things that he could have done with his dad was very politician. He knew Mayor Daley. He knew all the FBI. He knew everybody in show business and football, baseball stars, because he was in the cocktail lunch business. I could not go to him and say, Dad, will you do me a favor? With your connections in show business, could you try to get Johnny maybe into there and we get his voice a little bit better? And who knows? I couldn't do that because my dad would say, who are you? You know? But for anybody outside the family, he'd give you his shirt off his back because that's the way he was. So that's one regret. Another regret that I didn't go to visit him at Menard Prison like I had planned, but my family stepped in and said, don't go there. Leave our name fade out. And my brother threatened me with it, and because of that, I could have gone there. I could have laid out the whole scenario. I could have told him why he did it, what was behind it, and the whole 9 yards. I know. And I know he would have said, you're right on there. But that never happened. So those are the 2 regrets that I'll take to my grave. And as I said, I'm going to be 70 very soon, and you know, this is Christmas and everything. I think of my mom. I do. She was wonderful. I think of my sister who's gone, and I think of Marion. I think of Joanne, who passed away 2 years ago. That's Karen's older sister from cancer, and now Karen and I are the only 2 left that can tell any truth of anything about the whole story. She went on my website, sir. If you go up there, you'll see. She said my book is awesome. Mr. William Forsythe, God bless him, went and put a letter up telling everybody, go. If you want to know about a serial killer, read Barry's book before he was one. He gave me he did everything. He took me home last year, flew me home, him and Clark Peterson, so I could see my house for the last time after 40 years. Yeah, I'm very sentimental in many ways, and this whole thing is very sentimental to me because I talk of a different time period. I talk 50 years ago when ice cream was 10 cents a dip, which I put in my book, and talk about the moths being 27. So you see, you've asked the thing that I wish others would have said to me. What is the most important? What is the thing that really brings you or bothers you or remember? Johnny singing "Oh Holy Night."